Hello, everyone. Andrew Logan here. Great to be with you. We're on Facebook Live, we're on the podcast, we are in the group, we're on the page, we're in lots of different places today because it's a bit of a celebration. It's episode 150 of the podcast. And so, wanted to bring on someone very special to celebrate the 150th episode. And obviously, because his story is just so incredible, his story on behalf of him and his wife, Terry. His story is absolutely amazing. And so here we are doing a Facebook Live with Robert Hollis. Robert, great to have you back for your second time on the podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew. I just know that we're both cut from the same cloth, and I just love I love watching and following you. And so I know that your goal, like mine, is to try to make people more aware. I know that sometimes got a bad word, but I pray for everyone that watches this that you just do realize that you're capable of something more than you are now, and that's it.
Awesome. Well, there's a few reasons I wanted to bring on Robert, and we'll probably might as well just jump straight into it. We want to talk about money today. I mean, we want to talk about money and some of the negative mindsets that go on around money, some of the challenges and self-limiting beliefs that people have around money. And because Robert has such an incredible story, he can really help you. I'm sure when you hear his story, it can help you break through some of those limiting money mindsets. And so let's just talk about the elephant in the room, Robert, because people say money can't buy happiness. And I'm sure we'll unpack it a lot over the next 30 or 40 minutes or so. But the reality is, and one of the best phrases I ever heard in response to that is someone who says money doesn't buy happiness hasn't given enough of it away. And when I think of someone who is changing their world and their circle and their environment through charitable donations, I can't think of many people more charitable and more giving than yourself. So I'd love to sort of just start there, just unpacking a bit of your story and why charity is so important to you.
Okay.
And then obviously, because chicken and egg scenario here right from the start,
Right.
isn't it? Charity is important to you. More money means you can give more.
Right.
Now, if before you had money, you were charitable. Now that you are successful, you've had great success, you can give even more of it away. So I'd love to just kind of talk about that charity, and what charity means to you and the charities that you specifically work with.
Well, Andrew, it's so true. I remember there's probably a lot of people that are going to relate to this. Of course, my core heart came from at the age of 13. I was taken away from my parents and grew up in the foster care system here in the United States. And there's something really weird about that. If you really know all the statistics, it's sort of scary because when you're 18 years of age, they take what your belongings are, like in a garbage bag. It would be better if they had a suitcase or a backpack. And you're basically, hey, you're 18, you're on your way. Well, no one ever stops to think that if you're in a foster care system or in an orphan, that means that you didn't have relatives to go to begin with. You know what I mean? No one around you thought, oh my God, you can't take care of him anymore. Let me do it. So people don't realize that orphans and kids that grow up in foster care, when they get let out and basically told you're on their own, you're homeless overnight. It's like they just do not have anything here in the United States for the next level. And the little things that made the biggest difference in my life is, believe it or not, two of my mentors that I met. And I just did a story on one of them recently because I started out, working with my hands, and I had one individual tell me, wow, you're really good. You should be a mechanic. And it took that one individual, just that one, to tell me for the first time in my childhood that I was great at something. And so I always thought that, wow, if there was someone out there for the children that are orphans and don't have mother and father figures that could tell them, listen, I was in the same place as you were. And I'm telling you right now, you are worthy, you are great, you are enough, that you can be great at something. And it's funny because every religion out there or philosophy out there talks about there's more joy in giving than receiving. But I don't think that anybody really challenges that. There's these things out there that we hear, the more you give, the more you get, that there's this law of reciprocity that really works. And the biggest thing that really changed for me, Andrew, is that in one of my darkest moments in my life, here I get hurt on the job. And, I'll be willing to admit that I'm pretty driven and I had a good ego. And I'm working on professional race cars, and I'm 22, 23. And everyone that I know is not making the kind of money I'm making. And I'm traveling all over, working on race cars. So, my head couldn't fit in a room. And when I got hurt and put on workman's comp, and my income went to $900 a month, and within 6 months, I lost everything. Even though I had a good lifestyle, I had everything leveraged. I had good credit, so I had everything was on credit, everything. So when the cash flow stopped, now I don't even have electricity, and I'm at a very dark place. And all of a sudden, a guy says, "Hey, listen, I met this guy. He's making a lot of money. He's not that much older than you, and he wants to train people how to make 6 figures a year." And I was like, well, what if I mess up, And I'll never forget that when I met him, here was another person in my life, Andrew, that just went, "Well, so tell me, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm a master automotive technician. I work for Roger Penske on professional race cars." And he was going like, "You are going to crush this," because he immediately looked at me as someone that already achieved something greater than the average people. And now that I'm in this game, why wouldn't I accelerate in this game? And Andrew, probably like you, I remember looking at him and going, "Really? Really? Why do you think that?" And he goes, "Because once you know the certain process, once you know the certain way, you're going to reduce it to the ridiculous." He goes, "Every mechanic I know, they do their first brake job takes 3-4 hours, maybe a day. But then they do it in 2 hours, and then they do it in an hour, and then they do it in 45 minutes." And I was going, "That's exactly what I do." And he goes, "So if you could shorten up the process from piquing interest to getting someone involved to getting them a paycheck, if you can reduce that," he goes, "you're going to find a lot of people that want an extra payday." And so I believed in him. And so what happened to me is I set my goals at a top position, and I'm not bragging here. It's just who I am. But I hit those positions very quickly, very focused, just doing what is necessary. And then I'd hit those positions. And it was like I was thinking, the praise and recognition and walking on stage and getting the trophies and stuff. I really thought that that would be fulfilling. And it was for about a day.
Yeah.
The day of getting it, the day of everyone patting on the back. And Andrew, can I get your autograph? Can I get my
What's next?
yeah.
Right? What's next? Yep.
Yeah. And it was never, people probably find this weird, but if you're not money motivated, this video's for you, because I've never been money motivated. I've been achievement oriented. The science of achievement. I wanted, if someone else did it, I can do it. So then once I hit that, there was a guy that, I don't know if I told you this in my first story, but I got to meet the guy that Bill Austin. He's a multi-billionaire, and he started the Starkey Hearing Foundation. And where I got to meet him is through Eric Worre. And so I'm speaking at Eric Worre's events, and I was blessed to get to speak 5 times there, and closed it out a couple of times. And before Eric got huge, and he wanted to donate to this Bill Austin. And so it was unique when I got to talk to him, and he just very simply said, "Well, Robert, he said, so, you said you want to help me with giving to children." And I said, "I'd love that." And he just said to me, he said, "Listen," he said, "so what do you normally give a year?" And I don't care. I love being bold. And I said, "Well, last year I give just a little over $250,000. And he was going, "How much do you make?" I said, "Well, I did pretty good. I made a little over 2.5 million." And he goes, "So who told you that 10% was the goal?"
Mm.
I think that I got that from just learning from people that you give your, richest man in Babylon, pay yourself
Standard
10%.
10% tithe. Yeah.
Give 10%. It doesn't have to be to a church or a religious organization. Just give 10% away. And he says, I got a question for you. How's that working for you? Which, like my book, how is that working? And I was going, honestly, it's working really, really well. And he goes, does your life feel better based on what you gave than when you couldn't give? And I said, that's a stupid question. I'm so fulfilled. Now I'm focused on the art of fulfillment instead of the art of achievement. And he goes, well, I'll tell you what, whatever you give me, I'll match it 5-1. I went, what? He goes, for every dollar you give me, I'll put in 5. And he says, for $25, we can fit a child with a hearing aid that's never heard laughter, that's never heard the words, I love you, that's never heard music. And I just went, oh my God. It is like, I felt embarrassed. I felt embarrassed because I knew how much cash I had, but I wanted to give more. And that's how he got me. Here's a guy that says, come on, Andrew, name a number, 10 grand, 20 grand. If you put in 20 grand, I'll put in 100,000. Let's help these kids out. And you're like, damn, I don't have, if he's going to give 5-1, I wish I had $1 million. I got chilled. Every hair on my body stood up. And that changed my outlook. That one guy changed my thinking of, wow, if I helped X amount of kids, what if I helped 10X that many kids? And then all of a sudden it was like, what do I really need to live on? So that's all of a sudden when my income started jumping by 10-fold, because immediately I started giving more. And now all of a sudden that went up. And then all of a sudden my business expenses, that's when I talked to an attorney and I just went, how much can you give away? And here in the United States, you can write off 44%. You can take down your gross income and give to charity. And I went, why is that number there? You know what I mean? It was like, what is 10% when the government says, well, listen, you can make 5 million and you can turn around and give away 2.7, you know what I mean? Or 2.3. And I started going, that's what I want to do. And of course, that's addicting. That is so addicting. And so I might have said this on another one, but I used to love getting awards for hitting positions. And now I'm blessed to get awards based on my giving. And it's like, I'll give you one other thing that's just amazing. If I didn't say this, Andrew, on the giving part, you name an individual that you would like to spend personal time with. Politician, actor, actress, athlete, whatever. The really good ones have foundations and they have charities. And so you said you wanted to spend time with Oprah Winfrey, right? You want a picture with her. You want to talk to her. You find out that she's got the Angel Network. And then you find out that builds schools for little girls all over the world. You make a large donation to that and you will get invited. They want to know who the hell you are. What's this check from Andrew? Oh my God, this is a significant check. Who is this? And then they look you up and then they go, well, listen, we do an annual event for charity raising, a silent auction or whatever. I think this is a good couple to invite. I just got chills again. So now all of a sudden you're meeting people that you believed were people that inspired you, that, when you start making money, there's different people that inspire you, based on their giving. And man, you can change your life in a hurry. So now it goes from, no offense, but, getting my picture taken with someone like, I don't know, Les Brown or Zig Ziglar or Jim Rohn, and getting my picture taken with a multi-billionaire that's fitted children, over 3 million children with hearing aids. And, and people don't know who he is. And he's one of the largest contributors of philanthropists in the world. These people are quiet.
Yeah. Well, I did. Excuse me. It was only just on that point. It was only just the other day I did a podcast episode talking about, money talks, but wealth whispers.
Yeah.
And again, that mantra that and even I was chatting with a lady, like one of the coaching clients I work with just the other day, about, when we talk about recognition, that shallow rivers make the most noise kind of stuff, and deep
Mhm.
rivers tend to run silent. And there's just that same mindset that often the people who are out there the loudest and making the most noise are also doing the least.
Right.
And that does give that stigma that, oh, I gave some money to charity, so I have to tell everyone. And then here's someone who's giving millions and millions and millions of dollars away and never talks about it, right? Because that money talks, but then the wealth whispers. I
When you
do want to just circle back on a couple of things. Sorry,
please do.
I know, because we are going to keep like, I know we want to keep talking about that, but I want to circle back on two things particularly
Sure.
just before we finish things off on the other end. So you talked about leverage and cash flow, and this is really important as we just take a slight tangent off the sort of money mindset. But leverage is a beautiful tool, and we are in a business of leverage. This is a business of leverage and creating duplication systems, tools, all those sorts of things to leverage out your time and create more freedom. But leverage can work the other way too, right? So
Right.
you had a good income and you over leveraged, and then we talk about, you had cash but you didn't have cash flow.
Right.
And so, I mean, cash flow is the oxygen of a business. Cash flow is the oxygen of our life, right? So, I want to just talk about that quickly, and then I want to talk about motivating factors. You're
Sure.
not motivated by money, but other things. So, let's just talk about, like, because we love to celebrate leverage, but we don't always talk about the negative of leverage, which is when
Right.
people over leverage financially and they get themselves in bad positions, which again sort of can self perpetuate that thing of, well, I had money and then I lost it all. And
Uh,
and it's the money's fault. And it's the leverage's fault, right? Like
right.
so you would have seen over your decades now in this industry, people who get a great start, but then they make some bad decisions and they get themselves leveraged to the eyeballs.
Right.
And unfortunately, that just comes down to poor money skills, poor
It-
money mindset. And
yeah.
when you have a poor money mindset, no amount of money can fix that. Like,
Right.
you have to fix the mindset first, and then the money will stick around. So, can you just sort of talk about that? Like, what was it like to suddenly be leveraged the wrong way? Like, and
Yeah.
how? Yeah,
It's really truly believing that, my wife and I were talking about this today, and there's a phrase that's being hashtagged all over the United States, and I'm probably pretty sure it's leveraged worldwide now. And there's a concept called quiet quitting. And I've known about this concept forever. And it's you grow up and you're around and you're programmed at doing just the bare minimums. You make your minimums your maximums. And it's like, so, the general thesis around the world now is that people feel like they're worth more than they're getting paid, which I believe they are as a job. But what they do now is say, well, I'm just going to do as little as humanly possible to keep my job. And so they do that with money. So you're laughing because you've been there like me. I read Think and Grow Rich, and it talked about that the average person will go totally bankrupt and lose everything, three times. And of course, I'm the cocky guy, in my mid 20s that say, give me $1 million once. No problem. I'm not that stupid. Oh, yes, I was. I lost it three times. Now I'm 60. I'm getting smarter. And what the leverage does is, what we do is we have a tendency of believing that we can change our activities. So when you're ignorance on fire and you got a goal and you want to feed children or you want to give to animals, whatever drive you got and your commitment that you can make, what ends up happening is then we take our thoughts off once the leverage starts happening, and then we immediately go into management mode. And what we do is we see the cash flow at our peaks of income, and we change our lifestyle with the new cars, new travel, new home, new everything, and everything's leveraged. Everything is on credit. And
yeah,
now there's a weird energy that happens that you don't want it to happen, but all of a sudden that income flattens or that income starts to dip. And immediately, what we want to do is not go back into what is called phase one. and recreating a couple of new franchises or a couple more rental properties or a new organization is what I do, is build a new organization. What we do is we immediately go back to the existing people that we have and we start beating them up. My mentor shared with us, if you had 20 cows and they were producing 20 gallons of milk a day, and then you have a new person that says, well, we're building a second school, you need to double the amount of milk that you produce. Well, great, then I'll just beat up the 20 cows. I won't go out and get 20 more cows. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm calling you a cow here. I'm just saying that the goal is you'll always will hear this number one thought, which is the worst thought you could have when your income levels is, Andrew, please, 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 can you tell me how to motivate my people? Oh my God, can you tell me how to get these lazy people to get their asses working? They're watching you. They're probably doing more than you do. When's the last time that you built a new team? When's the last time you helped a group rank advance? When's the last time that you created a new organization, or in case people's franchise? So you're absolutely correct, Andrew. What people do is they over leverage themselves and they don't make their money work for them, you know. And I've been there 3 times, like I said, where the cash flow was so significant and so large that I switched my thinking. And
You
here's
feel
my,
bulletproof, right? You just
yeah,
feel invincible, and you
yeah,
feel like the smartest person in the world.
yeah. And
And
then
for both of us at about 25 years old, and you're a 25-year-old male, like for me, like, and I was single, 25-year-old male, like I'm the smartest person in the world, and I lost everything.
yeah,
But at least I learned it at 25. Like that's the one blessing that,
yeah,
hey, learn it at 25 when you're the only one who suffers. You know, like
right.
if I lost it all now, the children would suffer, which is,
There you
the
go.
terrible thing,
There you
right?
go.
And so
So
you,
how I turned that around is when I started giving more, there was more that I was responsible for. So now all of a sudden I have 2,500 orphans that I'm supporting. So my mind is, well, I don't want to support 2,500. I want to support 5,000. So now me looking at this industry that we're in, it's all numbers to me. You talk to a very successful person, don't ask them how much they're making. Ask them how many active people are in their organization. Better
yeah,
yet, why don't you set your goals a little higher? How many people in your group are on subscription, monthly subscription? Now, if you know what that number is and it's 4,000 and you're making 100,000, or let's, that was like a crazy number. If it's like 200, I was going like, people are going, you're talking like
25
4,000
dollars.
people on auto ship, like it's something that you do every day. But now my mindset is just simple numbers. It's like, can I get to 10,000 people? And one of my mentors that is still inspires me, there's 2 people that super inspire me in this industry. And one of them is Jeff Roberti. I don't know if you've ever met him or did that, but he's called the $110 million man. So the guy's made, more than double than I've made in this industry for life career. And when you talk to him, you say, well, tell me how good your group is doing. He says, well, I have over 1 million people on AutoShed.
Mm.
What? That's security and leverage. So you just
Yeah.
take your goals a little bit instead of hitting ranks or hitting income. Oh my God, I make 10 grand a month. How many people are depending on you outside your business? Because I can't let those kids down, Andrew. There's no way that I could call them up and say, hey, I'm not wiring you any money this month. That would devastate me. So that's a little more than losing a car or having to downgrade my home. You know what I mean? Or
Mm.
having my credit rating ruined. No, calling up a bunch of children and saying, I'm sorry, I made a commitment to you and I can't fulfill on that commitment.
We won't have time to unpack it now, but it's so important just when Rob was talking about like security. And again, we talk about freedom, but the step before freedom is security. And a lot of freedom is really just like a great amount of security. Like
It
freedom is
is.
just, and so, and that was always our thing when people like, well, why are you still doing this? It's like, I want to know that we like 90% of what we like. If there was a snap, a Thanos snap, and 90% of what we had disappeared, we would still be okay. Like, and that's just, you're not doing it for more freedom. You're doing it for more security at the end of the day. But let's just
wait until
talk.
your kids
Sorry.
start having kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
It flips on you again. I mean, you're looking at them, you're going like, I don't want them to worry about education. I don't want them to worry about anything. And so a lot of people
Well,
go,
let's
yeah.
a really good chance to plug the book, right? Just while you do mention that, because so Robert's here because Angie and I have just finished our new book. So it's called The Way Out Together. I'm going to shamelessly plug it right here. But Robert is one of 8 people who shares their story in the book. And again, shares it on behalf of him and his wife, Terry, and amazing story. And so we wanted to get Robert on to expand on his story, because I know the other day, Robert, I haven't told you this yet, but I know, like, because I sent you all, the final draft and said, hey, make sure you're happy with your section before this thing goes into production. And so many other people who shared their story wrote back and said, I need to meet Robert Hollis. What a story.
Wow.
So they, these are all other people who just wrote back and said, wow, what a story, when they read your story. So, but yeah, so we do talk about that in the book, where we're talking about how, like, for us, we're just that, generation or so behind you. Like, our children are still just finishing up school and that, and they are going to inherit some stuff. Like, let's just be totally honest, right? But we can't have them leaving school with the mindset of, well, I just sit around and mum and dad will provide forever. Like, so why do we show up each day? Because it's about character traits. It's about motivations. It's about who we are as a people and who we are as a couple. And that's what we want to instill. Will they inherit some stuff? Yes. Do they know how to take care of it? I sure hope so. Yeah. But again, they're not going to take care of it if we don't instill those values into them. Right. And so that does cycle us into that other thing where I want to talk about motivation.
Yeah.
And you talked about motivation just before. And I think, like, John Maxwell, who's a great mentor of mine, and I got to meet him face to face 3 years ago. Awesome. In Atlanta, in a very small, intimate group of us there. And he shared a lot during that event. But one thing that I really held on to was, he was talking about the 7 motivators of a human. And I'm gonna like put myself on the spot here. Right? I was madly trying to check my notes before, like, just silently in the background. But it's autonomy, family, recognition, money, relationships, growth, and purpose. Pretty sure that's the 7, right? But again, you're not motivated by the money. You're motivated by the purpose. Yeah. And you're motivated by the progress. And to me, it was always like, I'm motivated by the autonomy. I'm motivated to be able to have my own economy. Yeah. Now, money is a part of that economy, and that comes back to the money mindset. Like, you are motivated by a stronger purpose. Now, that purpose involves giving a lot of money away. So yes, you do need to make money to be able to give money away, but it's not about the money, and it's not about the recognition or the rank. No. It's about the purpose, and everything else just becomes the stop sign. So for me, I love writing books and training and coaching and that, because I love learning. Yeah. And again, I wanted to hit the top. I wanted to get there, not because of the recognition and not because of the money, but because I was driven by progress and mastery. Yeah. Like, I was driven by the learning. And it was like, if I master the learning, and if I progress every day and I grow every day, we will be autonomous in our life. And so when you talked before about, how do you milk more, how you milk those cows dry, like, you can't motivate someone unless you know what motivates them. And the first thing you need to do is figure out actually what motivates you, because if you are only motivated by money, then yes, it will be fleeting. It will come and go. It's what you attach to the money. And so I'd love to, as we start to sort of bring it all together, one of the best ways I ever learned this, I think one of the things, the real light bulb moments for me all those years ago, was, and I was in traditional business at the time, traditional small business, and I went along to a business coaching weekend, and the trainer was a guy called Brendan Nichols, and he'd made his money through real estate and stuff, but he gave the example that he said, money is just a magnifying glass. And again, I talk about this in the book when we talk about, couples being on the same page with each other, that, social media is a magnifying glass. Like
Yes.
money is a magnifying glass, right? Now you are happy and you were always happy, right? And then now that you have more money, you can be even happier because you can be more giving. When people say money won't buy me happiness, more money wouldn't make me happier. Yeah, well, it's because you're not happy first. Like, let's fix the happiness first,
Yes.
right? And then it's magnified. And his sort of analogy as well was like, it's like if I held a hammer. Now I did industrial arts up to grade 9 or 10, right? But
Yeah.
I had to go off and do physics and chem because I had to get into med school, right? So mum and dad wouldn't let me do like the woodwork like after grade 10 but I could hold a hammer and destroy a house.
Yeah.
Someone with talent could hold a hammer and build a house, right? Now I don't really know what I'm doing, but someone with talent and a hammer can make the most beautiful dream home, right?
Ah,
Someone without words, you can use words to lift someone up, and people believed in you before you believed in yourself, and you can use words to bring someone down.
amen.
And money is just the same thing, right?
It
And it's
is.
just purely you were someone who was driven by a purpose your whole life and driven. And then you just were able to achieve more, and you're able to give more. And so we circle back to that money does buy you happiness because you're able to give so much more of it away. And
Right.
what is wrong with that?
Again, I like to know, well, we do know there's these things that we all say, and I know they're different down under than they are in America. But when you hear phrases like, it's raining cats and dogs, I don't know why I sort of got into this little quandary that I wanted to really, really know, where these statements came from. Why are they there? And money doesn't buy happiness is, again, the movies and the media are so awesome at portraying people with money as being not good people, not being good people. And so, they're always not paying their employees well, and they're always trying to take, and a lot of people that are like that are usually driven why they got names of doing things not so good is because there's another driver called power. You know what I mean? So the power and the control help them get the money, but they never can control and have enough power. So they're never, ever, ever happy. So
Mm.
you're so correct, but it's so vilifying on people that are like that. And I'll give you one neat example of, for your children and my children, because this is the way they are. I wanted to find out what my children love the most and see if I can't wrap either a business or a foundation of around what they're motivated. They're not like me at all. Which is, I believe in God, thank God. You know what I mean? Some people might not, but it's like I'll never forget the story that I heard is, again, finding people that are the wealthiest and really do your job to find out what they did right. Everyone talked about what they did wrong, but people don't know why Ford Motor Company became the dominant motor company that it did. And everyone in the whole United States and world knew that you got paid more being an employee for Ford than any other place. Now, why isn't
Mm.
that brought up? Why isn't that brought up? That the whole world said that you needed to be paid $5 an hour, but he paid 8. Why doesn't Henry Ford go down known as that? No, he's known as the guy that tried to destroy the unions.
Yeah.
Let's vilify for the thing that he did wrong, not right. But Warren Buffett, I remember seeing a story about Warren Buffett, and it blew me away because as his children, he wanted his children to get educated. And so his son says, okay, I'm going to go into agriculture. His father said, why? And he says, I want to make sure that I can teach people anywhere in the world to grow a crop that they can use to trade for whatever they need. I want to be able to travel the world and teach people how to farm. My God, it's like, Dad, I don't want to own a hedge fund. I don't want to be one of the best known investors. I want to travel the world. And so his father's like, okay, what do you need for that?
Yeah.
Well, it's like, all of a sudden you create foundations for your children to take your legacy multiple steps forward. Like, a lot of people don't know that Sam Walton, the guy that started Walmart, that his daughter has one of the most pristine museums, like in Broken Ranch, Arkansas. And what she did is she purposely found all these museums that no longer were having financial difficulty because lack of donorship. And so she would find these places because they'd all be begging for money. And then she would go there and take the artwork and put it in a museum that her father made the decisions before her. She's never had to worry about money in her entire life. And her and her brothers are still in the top 10 of the wealthiest people. You know what I mean? So,
and they just bought the Denver Broncos, right? So
yeah. And so,
they're
yes,
doing well.
you sit there and you think about, when your children are looking at it a different, if you can really figure out what makes them thrive and smile and be happy. And I know there's a lot of arguments about this, just like money doesn't buy happiness. People always hear about my children and they think they're spoiled. Man, they have respect. Andrew, if you and your wife met them and we were going out to eat, they would beat you to the door to open the door up for your wife.
Well,
I mean, they
wealth whispers again, isn't it? Like
yeah,
they
but
they
you gotta
understand the
lead by
difference.
example. You gotta lead by example. Now, did I homeschool them? Yeah. Have they ever had a job? No. But that's a different philosophy that I have. If I believe, if I lived in Australia, they would go to school. I know they're not going to go to American schools. I'm not happy about promoting an educational system that's number 30 or number 35 in the world. It's like, no. So it gives you worldly knowledge and it allows you to hang around people. I'll give you one quick story about Bill Austin that just blew me away. I was actually at a banquet that he does annually, and Bill Clinton was there. And it was funny that I'm sitting there and I'm hearing him and Bill Clinton talk. And Bill Austin was quoting at that time, I think he gave away, it was over $15 million that they gathered at that one thing. And Bill Clinton looked at Bill and said, so man, that's amazing. And here's a guy that's in his 80s, Andrew. And he goes, really? And Bill Clinton said, man, what you've done is just amazing. He goes, what I've done is nothing. I'm like, and I'm hearing it from the guy. He wasn't saying it for me, Andrew. He was like, every day, there's so many more kids I could help. I'm not doing enough. And he's got like 2 personal jets that just fly him around, fitting children with earphones for the first time. I think that's what would keep you alive, right? You know what I mean?
A friend of mine has a saying, when good people make good money, they do great things. And that's that's the thing. And I think just tying a little bow in it because, I do want to respect your time, but I think it's so important what you talk about is creating that platform and just focusing on their goals and their motivation and their traits and helping them become who they are. And really, we talk about it because it's so important for us with a 16-year-old daughter who's looking at what she's going to do after school and all that. And Jack, who's, Jack's for Christmas last year asked for a YouTube camera and like a green screen and a camera because he sees me create my YouTube videos and he wants to create a YouTube video, right? So you look at all those sorts of things, but I think it's so important when we remember this in our business as well. And we talk again about systems and duplication, but then you are going to have people who want to go off and do it a slightly different way. Yeah. And it can be like, it can be like raising children a little bit that you need to give them the platform and then you do need to give them the freedom and those amazing, game changing leaders. Like I do a lot of CrossFit. And so I watch Aaron and his videos, right? Like, he's got his own thing and you provide the platform and you allow him to be successful. And I think that's where a lot of
Right.
people can struggle in this business model that leadership isn't about you have to do our system. Leadership is about let me help you create the best process for you. Let me give you the platform, but I
Very
want
well
you to
said.
go off and take it a different way. And so,
Very well said.
you're a great, you know, to me, you're a great father, you're a great role model, and you're a great leader. And they're all because of the same character traits. It's all because of the same mindset. And it's all about helping people find their motivation, because I can't motivate you if I don't know what motivates you.
Right.
And
Well,
I think what,
when you interviewed me, and again, the book, every one of you got to get the book. You just got to get the book, because a lot of people struggle with wanting people to do what they are doing, and that's what happens in what I think is an immature relationship. I can remember being extremely, extremely selfish. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. I wasn't smart enough to think about, is there an hour thing? See, children is an hour thing, and it's something that you don't think about. It's like, well, you like to have a family, and now it's an hour thing. But what is an hour thing outside that? So that's me taking the time to find out that my wife just loves animals. Oh my Lord, she loves animals. And so how I ended up getting out of retirement and coming back into the network marketing industry was my wife. So my wife says, "Hey, I don't want to dig into our nest egg and what you got going on over there, but I want to give a lot of money to animals.
hmm,
Would you help me?" We've been together for 39 years. It's like, yeah, I'll help you. So, the company that I'm in right now, I made my wife walk on stage. She was mad at me. She's the one that got the awards. And, when you talk about that, one thing that I think is most important is, if you can't do it for you, because we grew up in mixed messaging, Andrew, that's really weird. It's like, can't you be grateful for what you have? All right, so you're supposed to be grateful for what you have, because there's a majority of the people on the planet that have things worse than you. They don't have a home. They don't know what their next meal is coming from. They don't have clean water. So be grateful for what you have. And then you and I are like, you need to step your game up.
hmm,
And it's like, wait a minute, this is a mixed message. Well, let me help you with that really quick before we close this out. Find something that you would love to give to, and go out and talk to them. If it's a church, if it's a school, if it's a someone that you admire that's got a charity, find out what their next goal in that charity is. So for instance, I told this lady to do this, and she went to her church, and they said we need to raise about $75,000 to build a new park, and playground for children. And she goes, "Oh my God, that's a lot of money." And I said, "Make sure you tell them, count me in. Count me in." Well, she doesn't have 75 grand, but now her presentation changed, Andrew. Now she's reaching out to people and saying, "Hey, Andrew, I made a decision to make a commitment to help my church build a playground, and I figured out a way to make that happen. Is there any way that I can share it with you?"
hmm. It
Uh,
comes back to
no, I think you're stupid for helping children.
mm, it comes back to vision and purpose, doesn't it? It doesn't. It's no longer the money is just the tool. The money's the hammer in the hand. And like I always remember analogy of three bricklayers, and there's a man walks past three bricklayers, and he says to the first person, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm laying bricks." And he says to the second person, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm building a church." And he says to the third person, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm building a house to the Lord." So the first person has a job, the second person has a career, and the third person has a purpose. And it's that sort of mindset. And
It
again,
is.
like
It is.
just they're driven by the different vision. They're all laying bricks at the
Yeah.
end of the day, but they're doing it for different reasons. And
Right.
so, and I just because I'm a maths nerd, you reverse engineer it too, right?
You
So, what
do.
is the goal? Okay, well, the goal is $75,000. Well, what do I need to be earning to be able to give away $75,000? Well, let's just reverse engineer it from there, and then we have a purpose and a goal, and we just reverse engineer backwards, and it completely changes the story. And yeah, I mean, we could talk about wives with animal
Oh, yeah.
charities and, and
Forever.
stuff like that for a
Yeah, I
very
tell
long
people
time.
that say, "I don't need any extra money." Well, then great. Let me show you how to make 75 grand to give to the children.
Mm. Well, I think, yeah.
Told me you don't need any money. Great. We got to make this bigger. Jim Rohn, one of his best things that he said to me is he said, you die twice. I think I said that to you before because it's one of my philosophies. So the day you stop breathing here on this planet, and then the second time you die is when people stop mentioning your name. And if you don't think that people understand that, that's why them without them knowing have names on buildings. You drive down the 405 toward the valley when you get out of LAX and you see the J. Paul Getty Museum. Wow. That was not a thought of his. That was not a thought of his. So people like Kim and Hugh Hefner and these guys put money in foundations to keep it away from the government. And then they die and the foundation makes money on itself. And the people that stepped in after that built these incredible things for people. Howard Hughes did not sit around and go, one day I would like a art museum for children to visit. That was
I've always wondered, like, when you run the dog each morning and there's the, such and such park, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what they did. Like, how do you get a park named after you? Like, but I think
I can't wait to visit the Andrew Logan Park.
Yeah, it'll be a dog park, I guess. Yeah, I think perfect way to end there is, and you did say it really well, where be grateful for what you have, right? And there is that message, but also, and some people can say like it's greedy to want more, but you can also sit there and say, well, it's also a shame to not do what you're capable of, right? Like, and even, I was just, jotting in my notes the other day some things, and I was thinking, like, when people say, oh, I'm so frustrated that I got off to a slow start in my business. And it's like, well, the frustrating thing to me is someone coming in thinking it's just going to happen overnight without any growth or learning, right? Like, that's what frustrates me. So we can sit there and say we are incredibly grateful for everything we do have, but that doesn't mean we're just going to sit there and say, well, we've got a 7 out of 10 life. That's enough, because we can do so more and we can help so many more people. And it's, and then again, we can give away more at the end of it all. So I want to thank you so much. And as I said, guys, Robert is amazingly added his and Terry's story to the new book. It's called The Way Out Together. Oh, there it is. And it's Angie and I just talking about the skills to build a business, create financial freedom as a couple, because what point is having money if it doesn't come with happiness and a better relationship and all that kind of stuff? We don't want to have success without actually growing and building our relationship. So the book comes out in about 2 weeks. So keep an eye out on that. We will be having,
when I get my copy, I'll be promoting it like crazy. And
well, I've got my pen here to sign it for you. So,
and I don't want to be judgmental, Andrew, but there's weirdness when you find out how successful somebody is, and then the phrase behind it, because the media is just this way, is, why would you want to hear, oh, Andrew Logan, one of the largest philanthropists ever, and he's helped so many people succeed. And isn't it 6? I think it's 6 times he's been married. And I think he's got like 2 or 3 kids from each one. I don't know how many baby mamas he's got. That's not bringing your spouse along for the ride. That's not enrolling your spouse in the vision. That's lack of communications and all the stuff that Andrew talks about in that book, because he took the time to get the stories from people that knew what it took to build something together. So you need this book. It's not one of those ones, well, hey, I'm not married, or I'm single, or I've already been through a couple of bad relationships. No, I'd like to know this stuff before I got in a relationship. So I hope that helps people get that book.
Yeah, well, these are the originals that still have a few typos in them. So if you're happy with the typo version, you can have one very soon. But Matt, I want to thank you. And guys, if you want to hear more about Robert's story, you can buy the book, or you can follow him on Facebook, Robert Hollis Senior SR. So Robert, Robert, Hollis, HOLLIS SR for senior. You can follow him there as well. Absolutely honored to have you on as podcast episode 150 guest. And yeah, just, it only snuck up on me the other day. I think I was doing episode 146 or 147. It was like, wow, I said about doing 10. I was like, go and do 10. Started last year when we started the podcast. I said, just do 10 and then reassess. And so here we are. Yeah. Baby steps. So here we are at 150. It's great to have you back sharing more of your story. And I hope everyone has benefit from hearing Robert. Hopefully just help you with that money mindset. And remember, guys, if you don't think money will buy you happiness, you are right. Fix your happiness first. Find your purpose. Find what you want to do. And then everything else will start to fall in place. And you'll discover that money is just simply a tool to be bigger in your purpose and help more people. So it's great to hear stories from someone as happy as you. You can't listen to Robert and not laugh along and smile along as well. So, mate, greatly appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for listening in.
Take care. Give love to your wife and say hi to your kids for me.
Same to you, mate. We'll catch up soon.
Yep. Bye-bye.